Today we will talk about loops. So loops are very useful in writing big programs and they can be used with arrays, structure, union, etc. So first we will see the definition of loops and then we will see how loops can be used in writing programs. So what is the definition of loop and what are the types of loop? So loop is basically, so when you are writing a program and if you need to repeat one instruction several number of times, so you can write program by two methods. Either you will write a program and you will repeat that statement for several number of times by writing that statement again and again. So that is a bad kind of programming. What you can do, so in place of writing that statement several number of times, you can use a loop. So loops are predefined structure which you can program to repeat an instruction several number of times. So these are predefined structures. So what you need to do, you need to define a loop and you need to write that instruction only once. So that instruction will be repeated according to the condition of the loop. So there are two kinds of loop which are very useful in writing programs. So first one is for loop and second one is while and do while loop. So for loop are used when you know in advance how many times you need to repeat the loop. And while and do while loops are useful in those cases when you don't know, means how many times you need to repeat the instruction in advance. So this is when you need to, when you already know, means how many times you need to repeat the instruction, generally use for loop. And if you know the condition, like when you have to stop the loop, or use while and do while loop. So there is a difference between while and do while loop. So in while, condition is checked first and then the loop will be processed. And in do while, the condition first block is processed and then the condition is checked. So the do while loop will run at least one time. So the while may not run. So after checking the condition, if condition is false, while will not execute it, but this do while will be executed at least one times. So how can we define a for loop? So three things are required when you want to define a for loop. So because you are initializing a counter with the help of for loop, right? So you need to define initial condition of the counter. So generally we start counter from the one, counting from the one, and we need to show how many times we need to repeat the counter. So we need to show the termination condition, and because in each iteration you need to increase the count because you are counting with the help of this counter variable, so you need to write I plus plus. So this is a counter. So here you can see the for loop is using a counter which runs for 10 number of times. So in each iteration, the value of I is changing from 1 to another value. So the next value will be 2, then 3, then 4, right? So that value will change in each iteration. So let us see how for loop can be used in solving problems. So let us suppose if we want to add first n numbers, we can use a for loop simply. So we can use a counter variable which can change from 1 to n, and for finding out the sum, we can declare one more variable whose initial value will be 0, right? So we want to see like to which number we need to add. So we have to enter n, then we need to scan n, then go to here. So we will run a counter and the counter will start from 1 and goes up to n, and we starts adding these counter values again and again until this condition becomes false. So when this loop will be terminated, the answer will be in s. So in this way we can now identify the summation of series. You can use the for loop for calculating the square of first n numbers, cube of first n numbers. Just try to modify this program. Sometimes a break statement is used to exit loop. Sometimes we want to exit from the loop because of some condition. So this break is very necessary in some kind of programming. So we can exit from the loop depending on the conditions written by us, right? So when we use break statement in loop, the instruction written after break statement will not be executed when condition trigger breaking of loop. Is very useful in writing programs. So I will show you one program where break is useful. So we will be defining normal loop and we will see how break can be used. So example of loop with break statement. Let us suppose we want to check whether a given number is prime or not. So if you want to check whether the number is prime or not, so you have to enter the number, right? So if this number is prime, then this number will not be divisible from 2 to x minus 1, right? 2 to n minus 1, you can say. So if it is not divisible by any number which is starting from 2 and goes up to n minus 1, x minus 1, then it will be a prime. Otherwise, if it is divisible by any number in between 2 to n minus 1, then the number will be composite. So if so we have to divide again and again. So if at any point the value is divisible by any number, then we have to stop and we need to print the composite number. So here we can use break statement. So look, see what is happening. So here we want to enter the number. Now we want to check. So we are running this loop and we are calculating this value t is equal to x mod I. So we are dividing this value x by this I again and again. If the remainder becomes zero, it means it is a composite and we will break the loop. So we will print it that the value is composite and then we exit from the loop. So then if we want to print that this number is prime, so this value has to be repeated again and again. So finally, if the value of I becomes x, then we can say the number is prime. So if we are not writing this one, what will happen? It will execute both of these statements. So this is very important statement that we have to write. So loop within loop, we can use multiple for loops for writing very good programs, especially for writing patterns. We can use these loop. So let us suppose we want to define this pattern. So you can see whenever you want to write a whenever you want to display a pattern of two dimension, you need to use two for loops. Remember. So one will show the row number and other will show how many elements are in there in each row. So you can see you can relate those two variables and you can write any program. So here you can see in the first row there is only one element, in second row there are two elements. So second value is related to first. So the value of second variable is related to first. So we can identify the relation between the variables and we can utilize this relation in defining loops. So you can see how I is related to j. So both are equal. So we can so first we need to see how many rows we want to print, then we can run this loop for defining rows and you can see in because each element is related to row number, so that's why we are running the second variable from starting from 1 to the number of rows. So we are printing it again and again, and after printing that we are just writing end line, means we are terminating the line. So this will work for defining this pattern. Similarly, if you want to define this pattern, so here you can see this is the value of row, this is the value of row. So we can define this one again. So we have to use the same method. Here we have to use the same loop, but in here we will be printing I, the value of I. So I is actually I is increasing row by row, so we can print it. Similarly, for printing this block, we can use J. So the method is this one, and we can write this program for defining for printing that block. So this is how we can use different especially for loops and how can we combine two loops. So we will talk about other loops like while and do while in next presentation. Thank you very much.